What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today's video is a bit of a shop update, but it's a big shop update. I finally have my Grand Prix Bendpak lift installed. This is huge. So any of you guys who have been working in a shop for however long without a lift and then get one, you know how much of a game changer it is. I grew up in a shop where my father had lifts, so I feel like I took advantage of having a lift or having access to a shop with a lift at a very young age. But it wasn't until I started renting out my own units to have my own space or to basically be able to work on one of my cars whenever I wanted that I realized how important having a lift really was, or how important financially investing in a lift. These Bendpaks are not cheap. I pulled the trigger a few months ago and it sat here on the shop floor for a solid few months. And a few episodes back, you may remember seeing my good friend Kevin Furness coming through in his Tesla Model 3 Performance. And I bagged that car here in the shop with the Bag Rider Super Low kit on jack stands. I also built the suspension for the 1968 Mercedes W108 in this shop since I've moved here on jack stands as well. And I mean, that's no complaint. People have done far crazier work and far crazier builds in no shop with no jack stands using wood or whatever. So I know that this is a huge blessing. So over the last month, in between laser cutting jobs and anything else I was working on here in the shop, I started to kind of multitask and chisel away at installing this lift myself. Now, I spent a lot of time reading the Bendpak manual, the installation manual, over and over and over again to verse myself on a lift install, since I've never done one myself. I've been around them being installed, but never have been left to my own devices to install one. So once I got my position all set up, I pulled measurements off this wall, off the garage door, snapped some chalk lines, had everything right where I wanted it, pulled a couple of the different cars inside to kind of figure out how much space I would need in front of a car, make sure I wasn't crowding this back wall, my workbench at all, and to make sure I had ample space to not only get inside the door, but be able to walk behind the vehicle as well. So got all that sorted out and started to kind of figure out what hardware went where. Uprighted the posts just to make sure everything was in its position measurement-wise. And then I drilled one hole. I drilled one hole and kind of got cold feet and realized I was multitasking this and I shouldn't be. I had so much laser work on at the time that I folded and hired a crew to come in here and install it. So although that felt like defeat, because getting this thing installed cost almost $1,000. Like, it was a lot of money, and I still had to wire it myself. So having someone else install it was definitely a tough pill to swallow, but it's in, and it was done in a day, and now I can use it. The second day I basically wired it myself, and I'll show you guys a little bit about what I did there. That was a learning experience as well. But this is Bendpak's Grand Prix 7LC lift. And this is an overhead 7,000 pound two-post lift. And the reason why I went with this specific lift was because the trusses in this shop are only 11'6". So I wasn't gonna be able to fit a traditional 12-foot high overhead two-post lift. I could have gotten about another foot out of lift having a car on a two-post lift if I went with a floor crossover two-post, but I wanted to avoid that at all costs, especially with having any sort of low static cars in here, having all your cables go across the floor. I just didn't want to deal with that at all. So since I was only at 11.5 foot to my trusses, Bendpak's GP series, or the 7LC, was the lift that I really wanted to go with, even though it was a little bit more than I wanted to spend on the two-post lift. I can't remember exactly, but they have a 9 foot, a 10 foot, and I believe an 11 foot, just under 12 foot in this series of lifts. So you've got 3 different heights. If you've got an attached garage at your house and you do have 9 foot ceilings, you can fit one of these lifts in there, which is amazing. So luckily I've got a little bit more clearance than that. I have had the Corvair on this lift already, and I can actually stand up for the most part underneath that car right at the safety switch bar. Now, that car has cheated a little bit because we chopped the roof on it, so I get a little bit more clearance, and that car can go up a little bit higher than a normal Corvair could. I haven't had the 700 on the lift yet, but I think that'll, since that's so small, I'll be able to stand up under that pretty easily as well. So I can't stress it enough. This is a game changer for this shop. I moved into this shop here in Chattanooga, Tennessee a year ago, almost to the month. It was last August. I'm recording this in September of 2022. It was last August of 21 that I moved down here from New Hampshire and have been working in the shop on my own projects without a lift. And so this is just such a blessing to have in here now, especially being a legit lift like a Bendpak. I didn't just buy some eBay Chinese 2-post lift or something like that. Okay, so to go over wiring real quick, the lift runs off of 220, and the only 220 outlet that I have here in the shop is over here by the door. And I moved this here when I first moved in. That was way down in the corner where I have my laser machine shop set up. So I moved that down here, and unfortunately the leader on my welder isn't that long. So I set my welding table up over here. I'm not an electrician, but what I decided to do was run my 220 power to an outlet. My father's done this on his lift back home, but he's got an older like Atlas or rotary lift, and the power unit's much higher up. So he was able to mount some outlets underneath the power unit or underneath the tank. Unfortunately, you can't mount anything to the side of these posts because your lift head runs right against this side and the back side of the post. So right on the front, or on the side technically, is where you can mount anything, and even still you can't poke anything through too far. So since the power unit and tank sit so low on these Bendpaks, and then you've got your brake release system in here with the cover and all that, I went above that with a 220 outlet, brought it down from the trusses. I made my plug harness that'll plug into my power, and then I ran this 10-2 line down into my power unit here. I felt like this was good enough for me to do what I needed to do and to still be a safe setup. There's a relay in here, so there's not a lot of space, but I made sure I heat shrunk everything. All my connections are heat shrunk and wrapped well. Then I had to wire in my micro switch, which is in this box here. That kills power from that bar. So if you're raising your lift, the second your car's roof or whatever you're lifting touches that bar, pulls on a cable, which comes down right here through that pulley, and basically pulls a lever on a micro switch, which opens your circuit while you're powering your lift, which means it'll kill the power. So this that I ran in, and basically all I had to do there was one of my power lines coming in all the way to the micro switch, and then another line on the other end of the micro switch back to the power button basically. So when that switch is activated, it opens the circuit and kills all the power. Anyone who does electrical work could probably make this look like far more fancy, almost like a tucked or shaved engine bay in a car. I'm stoked on this. There's no wires just kind of like going everywhere, and it's pretty tidy. But what this will also do is when I've got a car or anything up on the lift, I can unplug this, and then I can plug my welder right in, right there, and now I've got 220 power to any shop implement that runs off of 220 right here at the lift. All right, so it's the next day, and I'm working on the OBS now. I didn't know where this episode was gonna go, but I'm finally replacing both side power window regulators and motors, as well as a door handle on the driver's side and a window switch on the passenger side. And I didn't plan on filming this because last year, just last year, I filmed the same episode doing the exact same thing in my OBS dually, the crew cab IDI dually that I had. So I decided not to film it, but now that I'm like buttoning up the driver's side door, I figured I'd give you guys an update as to what I'm doing. Before the end of the episode, I'll get the Corvair up on the lift and run you guys through seeing the car up on the lift and whatnot and how high it can actually go. Range of motion is great. Nice and powerful, no clunks. Getting that buttoned up, I'd snapped the driver's side door handle like months ago, and I've been rolling the window down every time I need to get out of the truck for well over a month, 2 months probably. And the regulator was going bad, so I always had to help it back up. So I knew that I was on an hourglass as to when I'd either not be able to get out of the truck or not be able to roll the window back up again once I got out. So finally taking care of that, and gonna get over to the passenger side and get the other regulator in, and that'll be today's task before we get back to talking about the lift. All right, spared you guys any more detailed shots of putting this thing all back together, but it's in, new window motor and regulator, all wired in, works properly. So yeah, that's the truck, one step closer to being done as far as all the little maintenance things I want to do. Well, now I can finally get out of the truck. Windows up with no problem now. Sounds wonderful compared to the old regulators. Fantastic. All right, let's get this thing up on the lift. Show you guys the thing in motion or in action. Got to air this thing up first. And what I noticed was the Corvair aired all the way up. I still can't get my front lift arms, even with the small pad. This real small low pro pad, which basically sits flush with the first part of the lift arm. I cannot get that underneath the frame rails up front, even at full lift. If you guys don't know, everything in the Corvair is up overhead. I mounted my fuse panel for everything here. I don't, if you guys have known me for a while, you guys have seen all this stuff. I've had this car longer than I've had anything else. But put the 3P controller up overhead. Man, it is so good to see a car on a lift in here. This isn't my building. Like, I rent this place out. Obviously, I live up top. For those of you who are new to the channel, it's a 3-bedroom house above this place. And my friend Andy owns it. I just rent it out. But I've been here for over a year. And now having a lift in here has been such a game changer. It's a smaller post lift. You've probably noticed that. They don't take up a ton of space, which is great in a shop like this or a shop that's even smaller. So as you can see, I can basically stand up under here. Enough to be able to work underneath the car and not have to sit on a stool, like a caster stool or something. Working on suspension components or even exhaust work. That's what's great about this lift, as opposed to like a mobile just scissor lift that pulls off the center of the car, where that would be real difficult to do any sort of exhaust work. Gonna end the video there. Just wanted to show you guys a massive shop update. I am so stoked to finally have a lift in here. Cannot wait to start on the Auto Union. Gonna get some maintenance done first on a couple of the cars before dragging the 59 Beetle in here and separating the body from the pan. Since, as I mentioned in a previous episode, that link pin swing arm pan is going to be sacrificed to the undercarriage of the Auto Union. So I am itching to start that project, especially now that I've got the lift in here, which will be vital to pull the body off of that pan. It'll make things so much easier. So stay tuned for more episodes coming soon as I start on this Auto Union project. It'll be a long series of videos as I kind of traverse the design aspect and how I'm going to put everything together. Pretty certain this is going to be the first Auto Union 1000 SP body dropped on air suspension in the world. So subscribe to the channel if you guys are excited as I am on this project. I cannot wait to add that car to the stable of weird, oddball, patinaed cars. I want to say thank you again to everybody who supported this channel, especially you guys over on the Patreon. You guys have been a few steps ahead on everything that's going on here in the shop and what's going on with the channel and the podcast. So thank you guys so much. If you guys are interested in supporting this channel and supporting some of these projects and the brand altogether, the Patreon link is in the video's description below. Thanks again to all of you guys for watching. I will see you in the next episode.